Welcome to the ClearMit webinar on CEIBS MBA Ready for the China Challenge. I'm very pleased to introduce Christina Mo from Admissions and Marketing Manager from CEIBS, as well as Christopher Day, a student from Canada. They're going to be speaking on the program from the admissions and student experience side. After a 15-20 minute presentation, they'll be available to ask questions. Be sure to post your questions in the chat option. And with that, I turn it over to you, Christina and Chris.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So as a quick introduction, my name is Christina Mo, and I'm currently the Marketing and Admissions Manager here for China Europe International Business School. And I'm also the 2016 alumni who graduated from this program myself. And today I especially invited one of my top recruits last year, Chris Day, to kind of partner with me in today's webinar. And another thing that I really want him to encourage him to do is to jump in.
Sure.
Okay. At any time. Okay. Yeah. You feel the need that you can contribute. So the reason why I kind of themed today's webinar as getting yourself ready for the China Challenge is because I know from my perspective, so it took me about a good 2 years to make the decision that I really want to just get into MBA. At the time, I haven't really thought about the region, the location, or which school I'm going to go for. But luckily, I had the opportunity of working in Shanghai 5 years prior I made the decision into this higher education. So for me, I really thought, just like in the real estate industry, location is actually one of the key variable factor that somewhat you guys should think about. So for me, if you look at so let's just quickly go through the agenda. I'm going to cover everything that you see in the slide right here. But what makes it different, I actually think if you look at the ranking itself, I know you guys, a lot of you are looking at US, I think US news, but if you're looking at a global education MBA, I would definitely recommend the Forbes, the Newsweek, and also the Financial Times, definitely. And of course, if you look at the top 20, all the schools are similar. So what I did was actually to look at the global trend of where the money is actually going, which part of the world you think the GDP is still growing at a faster rate. So for me at the time, I know despite the fact that, China's GDP is no longer above 7, it's slowing down. Conservatively, maybe 2018, we're hitting 5.5. But just look at the speed of the consumer growth, okay? We're talking about by 2021, it's gonna hit about $6 trillion US dollars. So these are the things that it took me about 2 years to kind of observe, to read over, and then I locked down the decision, I want to be part of China. I want to stay here in China. Therefore, after you make that decision to narrow down your program selection, of course, you'll definitely see CEIBS, our school, coming up as the top amongst China, okay?
Yeah, so I would actually add to that because my calculus was a little bit different from most of the people who are watching. I actually personally experienced the growth of China. I've been living here over the last 10 years and developing my career. And when I came to make a decision for my MBA, I already knew that I was going to stay in this market. I mean, I was basically only looking at programs that were in Asia region, so either China or Singapore. And when I narrowed it down and I looked at the rankings and I did some site visits, I mean, it was pretty clear for me that CEIBS was the best place in China.
Okay, so basically, like I said, we're definitely going to hit the topic of what our faculty is like and what our student profile is like, which I do always say to all the students that I try to recruit is definitely the biggest two asset of our school. And then not to mention, we're at the economic heart of Asia, okay? So these are the things we're gonna talk about. In terms of our faculty, over 60% of our faculty are actually recruited globally. One, as you can see on the far right of the slide, Professor Lydia Price, for example, she's originally from Colombia, but she has been here in China, living here in Shanghai for the past 12 years. So it's very typical that you'll see these internationally recruited faculties, however, with a curiosity, with a heart commitment for China local market. So back to Professor Lydia Price, she actually published a case study on Dow Chemicals, I believe in term 3, that you guys will be studying pretty soon. So basically this is an American company. However, you guys would probably know that China is the second largest market for Dow. So in the case study, you actually see what has Dow been doing? How has Dow's growth strategy different from its US strategy here in China? And needless to say, for someone to actually write a complete case study, you have to have really solid, you have to interview from top to bottom, right? So it was very interesting how she taught the class last year, and then I do believe it was 3 months right after this case was presented, the class was taught, she was able to actually invite the VP of Dow to come on campus and give, and we call it the executive forum. So this also is one of the strengths, what I really liked about our faculty is that the local connection to, the solid connection to these local companies. So basically they are able to, because I always say China is an interesting place. You come here, it's still developing. A lot of these, no matter if it's multinational companies or even domestic company, China company trying to grow, trying to expand, they love to work with, we call it mentorships or professional researchers. And where do you find them? A lot of times they come to our school to proactively seek collaboration, to work with our professors, which is why I felt our professors, though they're not very research-based, but they're so much more practical. They're very hands-on with what's happening locally, right?
I want to add on faculty, because when I was a candidate, one of the things I was looking at for the schools in China and Singapore was this composition of the faculty, how international they were. And at the time, I thought it was very important to me that I go to a school that still have a predominantly international faculty. But actually, my experience in the classes so far is that I've most enjoyed the Chinese faculty. And in particular, I had a professor of macroeconomics named Xu Bin, and the class was basically a master class in the Chinese macroeconomy. And this term I'm taking a class in financial statement analysis with a Chinese accounting professor, and the depth of which we look into local cases or Chinese companies and analyze their books is really, for me, that's, I mean, why did I choose CEIBS? Because I want to go deeper and deeper into the Chinese market. And of course, it's good to have international faculty, but I wouldn't underestimate that 1/3 that is Chinese faculty, because sometimes the insights are the richest, actually. So.
Yes. So basically, in terms of our faculty, I just want to let you guys know, it's actually a very hands-on culture. So just jump to the profile of our class. We always say our mission statement is China depth and global breadth. I do have to say a big chunk we do focus, because of our positioning, is on the China depth part. And you can see from our profile, it's typically not a very big class size comparing to most of the North American schools. I would say with your batch, we have 179 students. With my batch, we only had 166. So it's a lot more intimate. And then imagine 18 months, you pretty much do live and spend a lot of time on campus with this very close-knit batch size. And then I would say a good part, 60 to 65, will be all recruited domestically, Chinese students, while the rest 30 to 35, we do go abroad, and then we do attract these, we always call it business savvy, but China curious, or if you have any China culture, language, or work relevant exposure, previous exposure. These are the type of international students that we do recruit. And in terms of working experience, it's always good. We do have a minimum of 2 years. but most of our applicant we've seen, it would be a nice balance of 5 years plus. So our maximum is around 10 years. So this year you can see the country coverage, and this is typically a balanced profile, each batch that we do try to recruit.
I think there's a different feeling on campus here from US business schools or Canadian business schools, because back in North America, the MBA students on campus are typically the graduate students, the older students on campus. And professors will take lessons that they learn from in their MBA students, and then they will kind of put that into their undergraduate classes. But at CEIBS, actually, we are the least experienced students on campus. There are no undergraduates here. And probably 60–70% of the students who study at CEIBS are actually EMBA students or executive education. So when we walk around, we are the young ones here.
Yes.
And the professors actually have quite an enriched experience, because they're spending a lot of their time teaching EMBAs, and then they take that and they bring it into the classroom with us. So
yes. So this Chris actually hits I think I'll actually introduce more about what the ambiance is like on campus with our mentorship program later. So, but let's talk about the curriculum first. In terms of our standardized curriculum, the whole program is 18 months. That is, if you take these courses in a regular pace, I would always say with the first and the second term, every student will be taking exactly same class, all the core classes, we should say. And I do believe right now they are in the beginning of their term 3.
yeah.
And this is the term where you have what we call the electives. So based on what I'm going to introduce the second slide, the 12 months program. So this is where the 18 months and versus the 12 months program differ. So if you are someone who is really tight in time, so starting from the third term, you're going to have to take more classes, basically finishing up your 67 credits in a faster rate than the standardized program. And the typical student who would choose the 18 months, I'll give you the kind of give and take. People who are company sponsored, they have pressure to return to their post. People who are here because they already have their own business, so they want to come in and get the CEIBS value and then again return to their company. A lot of them are family business as well. So I would say this is what you're kind of missing out, because a lot of the students, let's just say if you are on the 18 months program, starting from term 3, so look, you have been here for the past 6 months. You've met the alumni. You have a solid relationship with the professor. Starting from term 3, a lot of people are probably starting their own either part-time job or doing a research for a professor, for a company, getting themselves out there, exposing themselves to a lot of the function or the industry that they want to switch to. So taking on a maybe 2 to 3 day full-time job is very common that we see amongst our students. Okay, so in terms of curriculum, do you?
No, I'll just add, like on this 18 to 12 month program, I was interested in this as well when I first, I'm in the 18 month program, but what I've actually found is that you can take the 18 month program and you can always speed up your progress,
Yes.
right? So we choose our electives at our own pace. If I wanted to finish all the work in 15 months or 14 months, I think it would be pretty easy to do that.
Yes.
And it would just, maybe there would be a delay until I graduate, but I would be free to go and work early.
Yes.
So I don't know, in my batch, there are not so many students who are doing the 12-month option,
Yes.
but there are many people who plan to finish before 18 months is up.
Yes. And as you can see from the 12 versus the 18 month, the highlight is actually the 4th term. I want to actually hit on what makes us different than a lot of the program out there is what we call it the Integrated China Strategy Project, the ICSP, which you guys will be, they're actually in the process of forming teams right now. So as you can see in term 1 through 3, the program, the school will actually assign you into a 5 to 6 people team based on your diversity in culture, language, and also job industry and function. It is what we always call, we'll force you, we'll kind of jump, we'll toss you in the water, but as a program, we'll be, we'll be waiting up there to save you, to jump in if we need, because we are trying to prepare you for the job market out there. You're going to be eventually out there working with a lot of different type of people. You're going to be facing friction because we all know people are different. Also, based on the knowledge you have of your batchmates, you will form your own sort of a consulting team of 5 to 6 people in the 4th term, or we call it ICSP. And you will be bidding for a consulting project with a real company who will be your client for the next 3 to 4 months. And then this client could be Nike. I do believe in my year they had a challenge for us with the friction between online versus brick and mortar offline stores. What is the channel conflict? How do you handle it? Another typical, because we know real estate is developing extremely fast in China. So a lot of, let's just say Lotte Resort from Korea was interested in tapping into the 2nd or the 3rd tier city with these hotel developments. So entry to a new market could be a challenge as well. So this is actually, these consulting groups, the companies actually sometimes will cover your travel. So it is your practice, your chance to hone your negotiation skill, to learn to listen to the needs, the real needs, try to dig out the real needs, and as a consulting team, and also just to get yourself out there also as well to companies. Because as you can see with the following term, which we call it the summer internship term, a lot of the internships are the result of a well-performance ICSP projects, right? Okay, so actually you do have few classmates taking the 12 months program, which I'm gonna introduce right here. So this is what I was called. If you are someone who are extremely up for the challenge to get 2 master program from a top, highly reputable school, then you would definitely go for the coordinated, dual master coordinated degree program. So in terms of China economy, we definitely see the 3 needs in these 3 industries. Johns Hopkins with public healthcare, with Cornell hospitality, and Fletcher. So these, I would say, most of the students will come to CEIBS for the first year to get their basic knowledge in terms of macro, micro economics, to get their statistics, to get their marketing, to get their finance skill done. And then for the 2nd year, starting the 2nd summer, after they finish the MBA side, they would go to the US side and complete their 2nd master. You're talking about 2 master's programs from top institution in 24 months. So basically, it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting. You're going to be missing out sometimes on a lot of internship. But like what Chris was saying, these decisions not necessarily have to be made before your admissions, but it's always nice to know so you know your options. We do find students as they get new information, they meet new alumni, plans do change, but our job is definitely out there to let you know what are the choices that you can make, okay? So definitely get back to our 6th term. Okay, so after your full-time internship in term 5, in term 6, this is what we call the exchange period. Because we do have a lot of local domestic Chinese students who unfortunately has never had the experience of studying abroad. So we do have a large 50% of our typical students who choose to exchange in we have over 30 partnering schools. And the good thing with these program is on the other side, you can also utilize what we call it, the career service as well. Chris, do you have anything to add in terms of
I would just say, so as I mentioned earlier, my plan was always very focused on China. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to stay here. And when I started at CEIBS, I was kind of clear that I did not want to do any exchange. And example of plans changing. My thought process has been evolving, and now I think I probably will go on an exchange. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Christina didn't know that, but yeah, I mean, you talk to people, and people come in, and you meet. We've already had 2 or 3 batches of exchange students come in this year and get a sense of what kind of benefit and experience that can bring.
So one interesting thing with exchange is that it actually happens during the period where most MBA programs actually have job recruitment or job fairs. So it is it is common to see a lot of the students coming here, choosing Shanghai, choosing our school for the exchange program, and actually also joining our job fair in January, coming up soon. So this is something you can also do, okay, if you're, let's just say, exchanging in INSEAD in France or in Singapore as well. So another thing is beyond the classroom. So outside of class, we always say you want to take time in for example, throughout the 18 months, you're going to have over 30 different case competitions. Few of the big ones, if you're interested in being a consultant, you can join the Roland Berger case competition every year, where the finalists will be competing in Barcelona. And if you're in terms of consumer products, sustainability, Nespresso by Nestle, every year that is a big one as well. Things like, what was that? Innovate China, I think is hosted by Tencent. I do believe for my batchmate, we had a Kevin Shimota. He's from Seattle, and I do believe he was actually the host, the event host, the competition host. And because he did it so well, he spent so much time with the Tencent team. It was through hosting the competition, not competing in, hosting the case competition, he actually built solid relationship, and then that's how he got the internship offer. So you have another 4 months experience to kind of getting to know the company, and then kind of know where to, contribute your value. And then naturally that's how he got his return offer. So he is actually currently full-time business development for international team for the WeChat team for Tencent. And another thing that I want to highlight was, I think in terms of CEIBS culture, what Chris was saying, because we are not a comprehensive institution, we do not have a undergraduate program. The second you walk onto this campus, everything is about business. And in terms of the student profile, our EMBA, this is probably very, very different than most of the American school. Our MBA size is actually 1/5 the size of our executive profile, student size. So every year as a school, we actually recruit, we have over 1,000 executive EMBAs in our campus. So naturally, the school developed a mentorship program, because basically it's a platform where we pair up. So every MBA student, as you come in term 1, it's mandatory to select a mentor. And who are these mentors? Basically, you have your EMBAs, your global EMBAs, and also your extremely senior MBA students who always love to give back to the school. So how do you select the mentors? You can do it based on your personal interest or hobby, or just function and industry as well.
Yeah, I actually got a lot out of my mentorship already. My mentor is a Chinese woman in her 50s. She has her own consulting practice. She's an executive coach. And my objective is actually to open my own small consulting firm when I graduate. So I met with her 2 nights ago, and she spent about 4 hours with me working through the initial business plan and bouncing back and forth some suggestions on how to manage clients. And also yesterday, she introduced me to the CEO for a company that I would like to work with on WeChat. So it's very hands-on and practical. You can get a lot out of that, actually.
Okay. So in addition to the mentorship program, of course, we have a lot of the student-led club activities. And I always say, putting yourself out there, it is what I say a lot of time is extra workload, but these are the things that you want to do outside of the classroom, because it's an opportunity for you to expose yourself, okay? So in addition to that, for the entrepreneurs, we always say the Innovate China every year, and then also our incubator is actually led by a full-time faculty who also teaches the EMBA, the global EMBA. So we also have a team of students kind of organizing the monthly event. Also, we call it the demo days. So a lot of times these events will have a theme. And then before the theme of this event, there probably will be different groups of students putting a business idea, to present to the audience. And usually we call it the fiesta. A party would follow by the demo day. Because we know that a lot of times, partnership, it doesn't come from a meeting room. It's usually come through a very casual conversation. So this is the ambiance, the vibe, what we want to accomplish, we want to achieve for the eLab. And in terms of the funding, it's definitely, like I said, because of our large amount of EMBA who would love to see the grooming of the next generation. So this full-time faculty is always there to support you. For example, if you're stuck in terms of putting up a business proposal, you can always count on the professor, faculty team to call for help, okay? Also, in terms of our career support, I definitely recommend everyone to register onto our official account, and then you can download, let's just say, the career report, okay? So as you can see in our most recent graduate 2017, all the numbers are there. Job placement was 92%, but in terms of international students, I do believe that percentage was a bit lower. But always look at this number, but it doesn't really tell you the story. So I always encourage for you guys to approach our admissions team for one-to-one consultation. So the job placement 3 months post-MBA for international students for the year 2017 was 83%. And then another thing I want to focus is if you look at the bottom of the slide, career service reciprocity. So this basically means that throughout the 18 months of your student, your status here as a student, you can walk on to any of these 5 schools and then let them know beforehand. Therefore, you can basically utilize their, there's also a job posting system for all MBA programs, the CSM system. It's a very privileged system that even me as an alumni can no longer have access to. So these type of system is only offered to current students. So we have partnered with these 5 schools. So within the time of your status as a student, you can utilize their platform as well, okay? These are just some of the just a highlight of this recruiter that come to our campus. And in terms of our alumni network, I do have to say, because CEIBS, we only have the whole school, it's only 23 years old. It's not compared to a lot of schools in the US, but I do have to say, if you are focused in China, we are the longest in terms of history and the most alumni accumulated in China. So this was actually one of the reasons why I chose CEIBS.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the size of the alumni network, but before I was a student here, I was a consultant, and after I gained my admission, it was six months or so when I was still working full time, and I don't think I have ever reached out to any alumni who didn't agree to meet me or talk to me on the phone. I mean, I probably contacted 15 or 20 people during the summer before I'd even started studying, and just said, hey, I'm going to be at CEIBS next year. I'm working on a project. Would you mind taking some time to speak with me? And I mean, overwhelmingly positive response. So I don't know about the size of the Alumni Network, but the relevance of the people who are in it and their approachability is pretty strong. So
here's another thing. I think in an extremely fast and diverse pace country or city like Shanghai, when you say you always meet, you're always exposed to a lot of different people. But the thing is, when you say you're from CEIBS, you're connected somehow with CEIBS. Something immediate is there because you know in the core there's something the same. You know, the value is there. So this is, I think, a lot of times when we say if you have the CEIBS friend, you get connected easily because immediately people feel your family. Immediately people will feel, you know who and who professor. Yes, I struggle the same. Does he still teach the same way? Does he still cold call the same way? You know you suffered or fought through the same 18 months. So I think this is something very valuable here, definitely in China. And in terms of the admissions procedure, if you guys are also looking at other school, I would say it's very similar. We do have the GRE or GMAT, one or the other. And also in addition, in our Shanghai campus, Beijing campus, and our Shenzhen campus, every year we do have what we call the CEIBS own exam. Unfortunately, it's only held on site in these 3 locations. And it's only offered in round 2 and round 3, okay? And then in terms of the application material, 2 letters of letter of recommendation, and then your essay questions. I also want to encourage you guys you don't have to start the application process, but you can start registering. By registering, it gives you a window of opportunity to just visually look through what is needed so you guys can start planning in the back of your head. In terms of review, our team will definitely get back within a month, definitely, okay? What was your process like? Would you like to share?
Yeah, so my process was probably a little bit, maybe some candidates have been planning on an MBA for many, many years and just trying to pick the right time. Personally, I had an opportunity in my life based on a change in my career when suddenly I became more available to think. I had always wanted to go back to school when I was in my mid-20s, but just life circumstances didn't allow me to do that. And suddenly I found that it was probably in like September around the time that I said, hey, you know, I think I can go and do an MBA. Finally, it's the right time. And I went and I organized a on-campus tour. Christina gave me a tour actually, and I got a feel for. I knew the school from many years before, but I had never really visited. And I was really kind of worried about the GMAT because I'm a bit older candidate, and it's been a long time since I took a standardized test, and I was thinking that I was going to need many months to prepare for that. But when I came, Christina and the other admissions staff kind of just pushed me to go, you know, take the test, see how you do, get as many pieces of the application together. And I ended up finishing my application in round 1. I think I put everything together in about 2 months, including taking the GMAT.
Yes. So another thing I want to hit before we quickly wrap up is the pre-summer bootcamp. So a lot of times I know not everyone had the China exposure like me and Chris. So for someone who has never been or doesn't know much of what the CEIBS MBA program is like, the summer bootcamp is basically a 5-day miniature version of what the 18 months would be like. So we're gonna also do in terms of you know, company visit, we're gonna have sessions with our career development consulting team. And then another thing I wanna hit is definitely to kind of, so basically it's a program that we're gonna start end of June, and then registration will be, the deadline for registration would be end of May. And then there is actually a 20% early bird discount, which is gonna end at the end of February. So definitely do register or shoot us an email to ask more questions about the MBA Summer Bootcamp if you're interested. Okay? So we welcome any question. You guys can start texting your question in the text box. So back to you.
Thank you very much for the very informative discussion. For people who have questions, feel free to post in the chat.
Okay, so for the summer bootcamp, is there application process? Yes, there is actually a interview. So we'll send you the application form. So basically by filling out a form, we'll get a very brief overview of what your resume is like. And then we'll definitely do a screening, and then we'll set up a time for us to do maybe just a 20 to 30-minute call, and then that will be the interview. And then I would say the whole process will be done within 3 weeks, and we'll definitely contact you. And this year, we actually, within the 5 days, we're actually doing a lot of exciting things. We're aiming definitely, I don't know if you guys heard about the largest Starbucks experience store, because we have a lot of alumni with Starbucks. So we're definitely gonna get an exclusive day to visit the headquarters in Shanghai, kind of to get an overview, expose. The HR will be sharing us with a company presentation, and then on a big bus, we'll definitely head to downtown of Shanghai, and then you guys can explore we call it the Shanghai Starbucks Roastery customer experience store. And then yeah, so that's one of the company, and we're also going to be visiting one of the consumer brand in terms of a sportswear, either Nike or Adidas, and also we're going to also visit a lot of 2 of the startup company as well. And then in addition to, like I said, session with career consulting team, basically we'll invite 7 of our consultant in various industry. So during the boot camp, the student can speak to different team members, and during the same time, we will also invite our alumni back within that industry to do industry sharing or function sharing as well. So this is something that you can expect. In addition to, you'll be living on campus, so you kind of feel what the dorm life would be. So basically what the student life would be as an MBA here, and also most importantly, what Shanghai is as a city, as a tier 1 city here in China.
Yeah, there's a question here from Thierry. How long does the overseas elective period last during the program, and how many can we take? I think I'll try and answer that one because I'm a student. So the overseas electives are around 1 week of organized activity, I think usually between 5 and 7 days. Most of them are extended into like another week of travel, because you get 20, 30, or maybe 60 students from your class go to a place like Israel or Germany or Japan, and you do 1 week of organized coursework. You're all there together, so you probably want to travel a bit as well. You can take as many as you want. I think the school requirement for graduation is that we must complete either 1 overseas elective or an international exchange. But there are many people who will take 2, 3, maybe even 4 overseas electives, as well as doing international exchange. It just depends on your profile. And they're spread out throughout the 18 months. So I think the first one, my class started in August. The first overseas elective was in October holiday. That's a national holiday in China. So there was a group of students went to Malaysia and did a CSR project there. And then in the December holiday, which just passed, there were 2 electives, 1 to Japan and 1 to Israel. I'm going to Germany in the beginning of May, the end of April, beginning of May, for a class on manufacturing. There may be more after that. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think there are 5 or 6 different overseas electives every program. And you can, if there's one that, like, for example, a very popular one is Israel, and I didn't do it this year in December, but next December, presumably that elective will be offered again, and I'll have a chance to take it again. I think there's also one that goes to the US.
Yes, Darton, UVA. And then there's also another one, a new one that's being added this coming October to India, Bangalore, IIMB. So in terms of startup entrepreneurship as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, okay, another question is, how often do CEIBS students get hired by CEIBS alumni?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Christina turned to me because I've been hired by a CEIBS alumni before I even joined CEIBS. So as I said before, I was a consultant, and I got that opportunity through, basically there was an MBA graduate from 10 years ago who approached the CEIBS MBA office. He was doing research on a client assignment. He wanted to speak to experts in a particular industry that he was consulting on. And because I had recently been admitted, the MBA office was familiar with my profile, and they put me in touch with this alumni. I basically took the meeting as more like a courtesy to kind of give some information, and I wanted to help out someone who was connected to CEIBS. And then he ended up proposing to hire me, and I worked with him and led several projects before I joined CEIBS. And I'll probably continue to work with him after I graduate as well. And then, kind of interesting, another aside is he later introduced me to one of his classmates who might become my business partner. So it's kind of it is, I think it's maybe the benefit of having not an enormous alumni network is that it's quite a tight circle. There's a lot of people that are still around campus, or every time they come back to China, they want to visit campus and reconnect because it's like their home in this country. So I've certainly got a lot of traction with the alumni network. I mean, it's not the same for everyone, but my story is just an anecdote. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
So my another thing I want to add is instead of always try to look at the number of how many students are hired or get a job from alumni, I still think it's most important to think about yourself and think about what this economy needs, and then how will you be able to contribute a value and differentiate yourself from the rest of the student body. That's actually the most important that I always think a student should think about. And also, let's talk about how many students accept job in China. I would always say because just to be honest, I don't think we're very well-known school outside of China or Asia. So with the international students that we recruit every year, these are very China-focused international students, okay? So naturally, they want to stay here, okay? So last year, I can tell you 83% that landed job all stayed here. So this has taken 3 months post MBA, but we do follow up. So most of the students, if not 100, definitely do stay on the Asia Pacific side. If it's not family business, back to their home country. Another quick question, an interesting fact I want to mention is actually we have a student from Peru. He had a family business. He had always known he's just going to come here to explore because they purchase a lot of things from China. It would just help him in terms of the trading of his family business. He knew that right after this 18 months, he's going to return to Peru. But now that he's back, we just actually received an email from him wanting to gain his access back with the CDC platform because he wants to come back to China and find a job here. And the reason being is because he has been here for a year and a half. He was saying that this is how these are his words. He said, every time he's talking to people back home, people feel he's sharing some sci-fi story from the future, the things that he sees in terms of the e-platform, you know, with the, I don't know if you guys heard of the WeChat Pay, the Alipay, the online payment system. So basically everything is done through your mobile device. For example, I remember when I was studying, I would be, look at these nails. I would be discussing my economic case study, drawing my demand and supply curve, and then ordering a lady to come to my discussion room onto our campus and do my nails while curing my nails, and I was fighting with my teammates how to draw the demand curve. Okay, so these are the type of business models. Not to mention, if I wanted a Starbucks, I can just text. I can just place an order and have it delivered within 10 minutes. Basically, that is how China has overcome, we call it the last mile. It's that much customized. The customer segmentation is that much varied. Nothing is generalized. This is the fascinating thing, that you can only feel it. You can only see it when you're here. So a lot of time when I talk to these international students who hasn't been here, I always say, take some time and try to come and visit our campus and just try to be in Shanghai for a few days.
There's a couple more questions here. There's a question on the international exchange program, the criteria. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. Sure. In terms of the criteria, it's basically all done within CEIBS. So basically, we look at your GPA accumulated, and then also your performance. Basically, if you have been, a good representation of the school, so nothing too much, right? No fights, okay? And then the third one would be your personal essay. So these three criteria, I would say, basically all the students will be having, you guys will select we'll have bidding trips, basically. And it's a bidding process. And let's just say for Wharton, it's always a very highly competitive every year. A lot of students want to go. So let's just say, if this year let's just say we have 2 spaces. If you know for sure amongst your batch, there are already 5 students who has better GPA, who has, you have to understand who you're competing with, and then you have to carefully placing your, bidding trips accordingly. So you can select your 3 top programs of your choice, and then this is how the process is done, the evaluation.
Yeah, I think that the number of places available at each university is partially determined by the number of people from that university that come and exchange to CEIBS.
Yes.
So the question here references INSEAD. INSEAD is they have quite an active relationship with us. Right?
So INSEAD, we get roughly, I would say 8 to 10. So there's never an issue it's pretty much flexible. But with LBS, yes, LBS, I would say LBS, Booth, Kellogg, Harvard, Wharton are the top 5, I would say, the more competitive programs. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, there's another question here about where are people taking jobs, if they're taking jobs with multinationals or with Chinese firms.
I do have to say, if you look at the career report from the past 3 years, you definitely see a larger trend of Chinese companies opening themselves up, aggressively expanding their businesses abroad. I would say with the typical MBA back in the States side or North American side, multinational company always look good. But this is what I feel. With the multinational companies coming here to China, they're not so keen on actually hiring internationals because they're keen to develop the local market here in China. Whereas the thing is, as an international student, it really adds so much kudo points to have a Chinese company, as your post-MBA, just to build your resume.
So from my experience, I think, first of all, I would say that it's not a real dichotomy. I think that the Chinese firms that we would work for are multinational firms. And I also think that the opportunities and probably the payment will be better from the Chinese firms that are looking internationally than from those multinationals that have been here for 20 years and have kind of got like a very well streamlined system, and they've already suppressed their cost structure and their HR profile quite a bit. But those international firms are aggressively expanding. Companies like Tencent, Alibaba, they are doing international BD around the world, and they're going into new markets where they don't operate. So it's quite a frontier opportunity, really. I think those are the more exciting opportunities as an international student than going and working for some blue chip company. It's also, I mean, it depends on everyone's goals, of course, but I think that the real exciting work is coming from the Chinese firms.
Yes. Another thing I want to add is in terms of Alibaba, we actually, for example, my batch, so Alibaba also has their LDP program. The first year they actually hired my batch from India, Divya. She is actually handling their global e-platform key account, and also helping with the business development with Paytm. This is the India version of what the PayPal would be like, or what we call the Alipay in China is like. And also the following year, Alibaba also recruited 2 international students from our alumni, Lila from the States, and also Diego from Spain, because of the relevant business development Alibaba is planning on Europe region, North American region.
Another one is JD. So like JD, a lot of North American students will never have heard of JD.com, but it's the second largest e-commerce company in China. It's actually founded by a CEIBS alumni about 17 or 18 years ago, and it's an enormous company. I just went on a visit there in December, and they were doing a recruiting pitch for our batch. We had 3 or 4 different CEIBS alumni they were all working in the finance department of JD, and basically they were selling us on opportunities in consumer finance. The company, JD and Alibaba both, in China, there's no Equifax equivalent. There's no consumer credit agency. So these e-commerce companies are basically using big data to create their own credit agency, and they were talking to us about all the different opportunities and things that they get to work on. It's quite exciting. In the same trip, I went to see Microsoft and Amazon, and I like Amazon is a distant player behind Alibaba and JD.com. So, I think I'm more excited about those Chinese companies.
I understand. Yeah. So next question, for the ICSP project, how much choice do students have to determine which project to work on? Do students seek out their own project, or CEIBS professor suggest a project? So just to recap, ICSP is in term 4. So by the time in term 3, all the clients or the project, the topic of the project will be presented. So all the students will have a mental overview of what's available out there. Usually we have a range, maybe around 35 to less than 40 teams of ICSP teams. And also with the projects offered, usually there are over 50. So you definitely have a wide selection of project offering, but it's critical of how you form your own team. So a lot of times people because you form your own team by yourself. We do have a restriction that in terms of diversity, there has to be, for example, you can't be all Chinese. So there has to be a mixture. And then also you also have to include a female student, okay? So these are the few rough conditions of how to form a team. A team, I think, biggest to 6 people, so 5 to 6 consultants to a team. And then based on what my knowledge, a lot of times choose to form a team based on the topic of the project, or based on how your relationship with another batchmate, or based on the strength. A lot of time people want to form a team with, I need someone who's strong in marketing, I need someone in finance. So there are various reasons to forming your team. And in terms of selecting your project, yes, it's also a bidding process. You will be given a specific amount of chips. Each team will be given a specific amount of chips. You will be bidding also your top 3 choice of projects, and then the program team, and also we will give the profile of the student to the client. And also each ICSP project will be assigned a faculty. So together with the program team, the client company, and also the faculty will be selecting who is the best fit team for a specific project of a specific company. So this is how the ICSB team is done.
Yeah, question about the E-Lab.
Right, entrepreneur program. Do students for companies soon after CEIBS, or do they seek to become entrepreneurs later, or is it more focused on family business? So I think number one, family business is not, it doesn't really apply to everybody. So I'm gonna take that out of the equation. In terms of becoming an entrepreneur, I always say, it's really hard to plan for that, but within the 18 months, you never know who you're gonna meet, what resources you're gonna gain. I've known people who had no plans of forming his or her own company, but because of the study, because she was very strong in terms of tech, and because she met somebody who could maybe, you know, it's different pieces of puzzle, and you never know in what time and what occasion, you know, things just come together. So, but I do think Chris here, before coming to CEIBS, you kind of knew, you decided eventually in your life you want to do something of your own.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm actually not part of the entrepreneurship program here, but I might change that. So because the campus is so small, I still participate in events that are put on by our E-Lab. And I know the professors who are running it, as well as the student leadership team that manages that. But I've actually had quite a good access to those entrepreneurship professors. I just they know who I am. I can email them and say, hey, can I come and talk to you about some thoughts about my project? And I've never really had any issue getting access to the resources. So whether I'm in the entrepreneurship program or not, and I think that it's kind of a revolving application process. So there are maybe 2 intakes every year if you want to go through the entrepreneurship program includes non-credit courses in developing a business, and I think that they group people based on the stage of the idea. If some people already have a early stage company that they've registered, and they need a different kind of support from people who maybe are curious about entrepreneurship and they have a rough idea but they don't have any business plan or partner, and they will kind of put you into the right segment. So, but yeah, there are a lot of, in my class, there are already people that are they're leaning towards entrepreneurship. They've kind of identified people that they might want to work with in the future, and they sort of have an initial plan or an initial idea. I think a lot of that stuff will actually break up and not actually go anywhere. And other bonds will sort of replace that in the future. And maybe you meet a classmate, maybe you meet somebody from outside of the class as well. Like I said, I think my business partner is going to be an alumni who graduated 10 years ago. But it took some time for the introductions to happen and that relationship to get built up.
So I just want to focus on 2 cases for Chris. This is what I noticed. If you want to start something of your own, you don't have to concentrate in entrepreneur. You don't have to be part of the entrepreneurship program. From what I observed, he basically just realized, as an entrepreneur in the future, I do believe these are the areas of focus. These are the new skills that I don't have. For example, you said during the course of this whole entire MBA program, you want to focus on finance.
Yeah.
So a lot of times he's actually challenging himself of taking and gaining a lot of knowledge, that background that he doesn't have previously. So it's not about, I want to become an entrepreneur, so I should concentrate in entrepreneur. I should be part of the E-Lab. I think there are different ways to go about it. And another example I wanted to share is actually one of my batchmates from Argentina. He's already an entrepreneur before coming to CEIBS. He's actually selling wine. He imports Argentina wine into China because, of course, wine is also a booming business because people just don't know how to differentiate wine. So right now, the marketing strategy is actually extremely raw and interesting. But funnily enough, he almost failed our entrepreneurship class. Because why? Because he was focusing so much on his own business, so he had to be absent a lot, and it just so happened to be a lot of the entrepreneurship class. So I think most of the students at an MBA stage were all adults. We look at things from a much more practical way. So I definitely do have to comment. As an environment-wise, China, Shanghai is definitely the place that pushes, that encourages. You're going to be oftentimes have a conversation with the most amount of people who are not satisfied with just having a stable job at a company for the rest of their life. I would think this is the environment that grew the most entrepreneurship-minded people. Yes, so this is something I can guarantee you. Okay.
Yeah, how much time do we have left for more questions? There's another one here about how well known is CEIBS in Australia. Have you done recruiting tours in Australia?
Yes, actually this is the first year in 2017. I went to Melbourne and Sydney. We joined the MBA Access and the QS tour. I do believe in terms of MBA, I think even for either MBA Access or QS, it was their first year to put Australia on their global tour as well. So we do actually have an exchange program with Monash. So yes, we do have, but it's not a very mature. But every year we do have a few students. This year we have two, Jackie and Chu from Australia. Actually three, and also Jay. So.
I mean, just 2 nights ago, we had a group from Melbourne Business School here. We did no, from Melbourne.
Okay.
From Melbourne Business School was here. They were here on an overseas elective, and there was about 30 of them, and maybe 25 or so CEIBS students went, and we had a mixer, drinks, and dinner with them at a nearby pub, and they've been doing tours around Shanghai, nearby cities, and yeah, I mean, I can't speak. I don't have any connection to Australia myself.
But just to let you know, is CEIBS well known in Australia? I'm going to be completely honest with you. No, it's not. I always want to focus. A lot of time, people, let's just say from India, from America, you know, they go. Oh no, I want to come to China for the MBA, but post MBA, I want to return to Canada. I want to go to, you know, return to India. For those, I would always say this is the most objective suggestion I can give you is you should really think about the location where you choose to focus this amount of tuition in this large amount of time. The reason why I knew I don't want to return back to the States for my MBA, I did my undergrad, I pretty much grew up in the States, is because I know, I mean, I still love all my classmates back in the States, but none of them I can bring it over here to China. And at this point of life, if I made the decision I want to be here for the next 5-10 years, I need someone, I need resources, I need a circle of friends, support that are hands-on, helpful, resourceful in terms of information, okay? So this is something you should think about. So just to let you know, in Australia, CEIBS definitely isn't well known, okay? Okay, I think we covered most of the questions.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about CEIBS and answer our questions. Really appreciate it, Christina and Christopher. And we just want to thank everyone. And obviously, we will be keeping a recording of this and distributing it to our audience. And so, with that, I will say good night.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Everybody have a great night.
You too.
Well, great morning.
Yes. It's daytime. I think you're going to have my morning coffee now.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ryan. So I'm going to, where's James? All right.
Cut us off here.